Arsenal have been a really weird team this season. They are still first in the Premier League table. They may still win the Premier League. They are still going to be favourites to do so. But performances like this, results like this, coupled with everything else we've seen this season and the current tactical meta, it is very weird watching Arsenal as a non-Arsenal fan. And if you are an Arsenal fan watching this video, I'm sure you are not only confused, but also frustrated, perhaps maybe a bit infuriated as well as to what you have seen, not only today, but also across large stretches of this season. Welcome to Off the Ball. I am a City fan, but this is going to be a non-City football channel. If you guys like it, I'll continue to make videos on this second channel in addition to my main channel. Let's start with the Bournemouth team, first of all, and then, or rather the team that Arsenal fielded against Bournemouth, and then let's look at it through the framework of what we have seen across this entire season. Credit does need to be given to Bournemouth, of course. I don't want this to become, oh, Arsenal were only horrible and Bournemouth didn't play their part as well, because obviously they did. They saw a potentially frail Arsenal side. They had nearly half of the ball at the Emirates in that first half. They were so defensively resolute, and we'll get on to how Arsenal were offensively blunt, that outside of the penalty, Arsenal had nothing from open play. I don't even think they created any expected goals from open play. I think over the entire 90 minutes, it was 0.2, something insane like that. So Bournemouth absolutely deserve massive credit for their approach. They went very direct. They asked a lot of questions of Arsenal's build-up structure as well. They are low on confidence. They are lacking some players. Bournemouth absolutely needs to have some credit here. But that aside, at the end of the day, it's at the Emirates. Arsenal are a better team than Bournemouth. They know they have to win this game. So, of course, the primary focus does have to be on what Arsenal failed to do rather than just what Bournemouth did do well. Starting with the lineup, I appreciate that Eze is only just coming back from injury. And I appreciate that Dalman is 16 years old, that Saka wasn't available, that Ødegaard wasn't available, that Timber wasn't available. But that's why it's a squad game, isn't it? I can't be convinced that the players on the pitch, coupled with the players on the bench, there wasn't a more offensive option to be had for Arteta in that front four. Havertz, Gyökeres, Madueke, Martinelli, there was absolutely zero fluidity or chemistry from those four players. I don't know how often those four have played together this season. It seems like they haven't done so at all. If they have, it's very, very minimal, but you could absolutely tell today the lack of chemistry and cohesion between that forward unit. It just didn't exist. And then when you have that coupled with Rice and Zubimendi especially, who I thought was going to be brought in to try to be this progressive, maybe not progressive monster, but certainly someone who would be able to play this role of picking up from the goalkeeper, then turning and driving his team further forward. The fact that Rice was having to come and do his job quite often and assist him a lot, almost like defeated the point of what I thought Zubimendi was supposed to be. Is that just Ødegaard being missed, perhaps? So I get it. You can't start Ødegaard. And maybe you don't want to start Eze because he's just come back from injury. But you have to take... At what point do you take a risk? Because yes, Arsenal were, and still are, leading the title race, and they still have a big gap on City. City might not even beat Chelsea tomorrow, for example. But you have to try to win every single game from now until the end of the season. And that starting 11 to me just didn't... It just screamed passiveness. It screamed fear as well, in all honesty. Is it ideal to start 16-year-old Dalman? Probably not. Is it ideal to start Eze, who's just come back from injury? Probably not. But I think you have to take that risk at some point. Otherwise, we end up in a situation like this where, okay, Arsenal, it was 1-1 at half-time, fine, but Bournemouth were in the ascendancy. They had all the momentum, and outside of the penalty, that's all Arsenal had. At some point, you have to be brave with your lineups. You have to be brave with your outlook and your philosophy and your approach. And too often, the main critique of Arteta has been, you aren't brave enough and you aren't going for it enough. I'm sorry, that's a buzz phrase, but there's not enough fluid, offensive patterns of play, especially through the centre of the pitch. I get it, it's more risky to play through the centre and in those areas, but that's where you have someone like an Eze or a Dalman or whoever is available to play. You don't play Havertz in that role. That's just a non-factor at that point, essentially. That forward line may have not even existed from open play for large stretches of that match. And we couple it with the midfield issues I've also outlined, you're going to be left in a situation where you have zero open play chances in that first half. Even when Eze came on and Dalman came on, it's almost like it's too little too late by that point, because you've almost like established what is your mindset going into that game. And these are intangibles, but I do think they matter. This isn't about, oh, Arsenal are bottle jobs and blah, 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 blah. But you better believe that the Arsenal players and managers, coaching staff, you better believe they are well aware of the narrative around them that fans online, in the stadium, whatever, describe them as bottle jobs. That's not just non-Arsenal fans. I've seen plenty of Arsenal fans say that as well. This isn't about me saying, oh, they're bottle jobs, do loads of banter. It's nothing to do with that. It's more so the players surely already have this in their minds. What you don't want to do is try to feed into that narrative by setting up really defensively and like a frail side. That creates discomfort and uncertainty in the ground as well, because the players know it, the fans absolutely know it as well. They're watching it going, oh my gosh, here we go again. If you're not giving the fans anything to get up for and to be inspired by, you are, of course, going to create uncertainty in the ground that festers back into the team. And it's this cycle of uncertain shite, essentially. And you are left in situations like this where you end up losing at home against Bournemouth. The squad building of Arsenal as well. This is a more general, overarching point, I guess, about like what is the current tactical meta in the Premier League? What's the state of play? We know that this season especially, man-to-man pressing has become very prevalent. It was already a thing. It wasn't just invented this season, obviously, but it's become really, really established and really mainstream seemingly this season. I've never seen like managers talk about it so consistently from one week to another, for example. So we know that's been a thing this season. We also know that there has been this lean towards the lesser sides, the more mid-table sides, becoming more physical, because previously they were up against these more high technician sides, whatever you want to call them. It's very hard to play out technical football, a really good technical side, try to go down a different route. If we can't beat them technically, can we perhaps beat them physically? Can we ask that question instead? And lots of teams have done that. Teams like Newcastle, teams like Aston Villa, teams like Bournemouth, etc., etc. That's been the trend across the Premier League. And Arsenal have gone down the route of trying to be the best of that meta, if you will. There was another route, because there's always an option. And it's the route that I'm hopeful, as a City fan, that City are going against the grain and trying to focus more so on the technical side rather than the trying to hyper specialize into physicality and set piece optimization. The reason why I think, I'm not going to say that's an error, because if they win the title at the end of the day, it's worked. Obviously, if they don't win the title, Arsenal, then you are left with a very hyper specialized squad, which hasn't even won the title. And we know that football is cyclical. The reason why I think that is perhaps more of a problem than going down the other route of trying to focus more so on the technical side is that, in my opinion, you don't have to agree with this, of course. This isn't a Rodri point of, oh, I think there's a correct way to playing football. It's not to do with that. But I do fundamentally think that the philosophy of what Arsenal have been this season is very low ceiling. That's what I'm trying to say. It's very high floor. There's no doubt about it. But there will be some games like this where it's ultimately not enough. So generally speaking, you will be able to, because of your high floor, be able to win the vast majority of games in the season, even if you turn up and aren't necessarily that good, because your floor is so high. So even if you have players underperforming or you have players out injured, you'll still be able to get over the line. But there will be some games like this where a Bournemouth side presses you really high, forces you to try to play out from the back or go long, but you don't have necessarily the level of player to play out from the back when Bournemouth are so direct in their press like that. We have players like Rice and Zubimendi and Havertz. That's your core midfield. That doesn't necessarily scream central progression and excellent phase one assistance, does it? We saw it in the League Cup final as well. Arsenal didn't have an option to City saying, right, try to play out from us. Try to play out centrally. We're just going to pop some players here. Try to do it. They didn't have an answer to it. And it's not like it was this genius strategy by City. Liverpool were able to come up with an answer within a few minutes with Wirtz simply dropping deep. someone like an Eze or a Dalman had to start today. But it's not just about today, it's also just about the entirety of the season. And the question will be, well, my question anyway, is this set piece optimization, this approach, this leaning into a more physical style of play. Has Arteta made the correct call going down that route ultimately? If he wins the title this season, you're going to say yes, because you get the trophy, it's a thing. But then, and this is more of like a medium long-term question, and I suppose signings could resolve this. What happens when football inevitably shifts back? Because we know that football is cyclical. There's no real new ideas in football. It's all repetition of what has come beforehand. This is why I'm very confused as to what Arsenal currently are in respect to their squad building and squad design. I'm also very confused as to what they will be going forwards, because in my opinion, they've basically been going backwards since 2023, I want to say. I know that people will say that 22-23 was the biggest bottle job for Arsenal. Let's all have banter. But I truly think that was the best version of Arsenal. They were just immature. That's all. They had a very young core of player. Some of the players perhaps weren't up to it either. They still had Ramsdale in goal, for example. They didn't have Declan Rice at the club at that point again. But they've gone away from what they were doing that season. Seemingly, Arteta was scarred, perhaps by the games against City. And from there, he's not really looked back. He's not really wanted to take those risks, especially in those central areas. And yeah, it is high-risk football, but it's also high-reward football. And Arsenal, I'm sure they have one of the highest XGs from open play across this season. But how many of those open play goals were generated after the deadlock being broken from a set piece, I guess would be my retort to that. If you become way too over-reliant on an, in my opinion, low-ceiling style of football, you are going to get found out perhaps too consistently to win anything of substance, whether that's a Premier League or just any trophy generally. Now, I do still think that Arsenal will win the title, having said all that. But the main reason why I think that is because I don't think their competition is necessarily that good. As a City fan, we are a very flawed young side. In theory, this is our transition year. In theory, got lots of players that we've had to bleed into the squad this season. City should not be winning the title this season. We shouldn't be close to winning the title this season. But Arsenal keep failing to disprove the narrative, the discourse that they are bottlers. And that's very confusing. As a non-Arsenal fan, if you are an Arsenal fan, it's probably confusing and also infuriating. That was Off the Ball, experimental video, second channel. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like the video and let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I will continue to do non-City videos every now and then. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a good day.